also Lou
Hi.
for a moment. Um, Very briefly, we had our first meeting yesterday. It was nice. I'm sure we'll talk about that more ahead for the Google Summer for Summer Code, open source cohort, things like that. It's been a hugely busy week and 2 days for me, and in a good way. I have been. We're very, very, very close to finally launching the update of the JoPro website, which houses a lot of things, including the history of Google Summer Code, which is basically, I guess, our approaching the 10-year mark. So congrats, Bradley, on that. And it's cool. Like I went back and I realized I found like I looked at what Stefan's doing. I looked at Krishna Kachal. I looked at RB.
Roger
I looked at
Gopal.
RB.
Yeah.
Yeah, and many other folks, and where they are now. Like some of them are like working for Cisco. Stefan's done a lot of cool stuff. I think he's a PhD student now or something.
Yeah.
Like what everybody's doing is really interesting to see. Even like I looked at like Stephanie Carollo, one of the old interns for back when I was doing stuff with UAlbany more directly in the Brian McCorkle UAlbany era. So it was kind of cool to see this. I don't know, between basically through my time with the lab and sort of what we've been doing. Like this really interesting cohort of like just general alumni of the lab over the last little while. So I don't know. I'm sure that will lead into some other discussions, and I might reach out to some of them and check into them or whatever. But it's a very interesting little bit of history. So maybe we'll talk about that once that's more like ready to go. Maybe we'll talk about that in, I don't know, a future meeting or something. I don't know if we can pull some kind of a reunion off or something like that, but at the very least, something that we can talk about internally, and that'll be cool. So that's part of it, but the website overall is like kind of taking JoPro to the next level of some other things. So that's happening, and I also had some interviews this week for data and direction. So that's sort of the data ethics responsible AI internship program. And I'll get off my silly camera, my influencer camera walking around. It's been so interesting this year just to speak about this, and I'll ramble a little bit. If people have anything urgent to say, please interrupt me because this isn't the most important thing. But as we're kind of waking up and getting ready to talk more, the East Coasters anyway, and then the West Coasters are even more so. You know who you are. It's been so interesting with data and direction because I increasingly have shifted away from publishing it, and I was so mad. I was always so mad when I kind of heard academic groups or whatever not be very vocal about what they're doing. And I kind of get it now, unfortunately, because I had to filter so much from the original proposal, which when I first posted, it was like, oh, it still had data and data science in it, which it is about that. But when you have it, when you say things in certain ways and make it too broad, you just get everything. And this year, as many of us know, is just terrible for like weirdly generated or circumstantially relevant, applications and submissions to things. And it's like, I feel like I got very lucky this year, and to be a little bit inside baseball about this, but I feel like I got very lucky because a lot of people just saw last year's posting, and I had already, that's like a pre-trained or pre-tailored posting for what that is, because I kind of adopted it enough where it kind of got filtered out a lot of things I don't want and highlighted things I do want. So that was quite nice, and a lot of the early applicants to the opportunity basically went out of their way to inquire about it, which is like, oh, this is great. Because everyone I've interviewed so far has been like completely mission aligned. And that's great. So that's been happening, and I think Google Summer of Code will kind of be a couple weeks ahead of us, because most of the people that will probably be starting are going to be starting like in a week or two, or at least by June. So I'm hoping some of them will join the Friday meetings, and maybe some of their other. Well, the Google Summer of Code meetings is also a Indigenous meeting on Fridays currently, but at least the Google Summer of Code open source meetings, and maybe some of these meetings as well. Last year that didn't work out at all, because we had primarily 2 West Coast folks and someone in Europe, and it was very hard to coordinate everybody. But it's going well. Like that's emerging, and I don't know, some of the broader structure for things and general program development that I've been doing for a long time. Like the discussion series are happening on many fronts. They just aren't published yet. So I'm kind of like, all right, triaging the fact that this big, massive website web presence update probably needs to happen first before I can fuss about some of the more fun things. But we're getting closer. So that's my sort of program organizational director hat update. And the other thing I'll say is, I don't think we talked about this last week. We can talk about this later, but just to preview it, the MIT AHA group, the Advancing Humans with AI group, had their year-end symposium. It's that time of the year. Everybody has their big symposiums now and whatnot. But I was able to virtually view most of it. It was very good. I didn't get to go to the other. I went to like Society Ethics and Computing for Social Ethics or whatever it was last year. I didn't get to go to that. I think that was only in person. But the AHA group was very good, and I'm going to kind of use that as a baseline for some other things, including they announced their big open benchmark project, which is sort of creating these benchmarks for, their big thing is like human flourishing. They kind of, the people that sort of, are kind of people giving a damn about certain things in the tech space. The cool language now is human flourishing, which Pat and Patty Mays have kind of championed in what they're doing. That's what the AI, advancing humans with AI, but human flourishing. The Cosmos Institute has kind of adopted that language as well from a slightly different. They're in a slightly different lane, what they're trying to achieve. But I'm attempting to create some sort of community resources and infrastructure for people trying to navigate all of those different. Who's actually doing what and what's their angle? That's part of the things I'm trying to build out in like the JoPro Future Center, which is officially launching soon, as everything else comes on board. But yeah, the symposium was very good and highly recommended. And at the very least, their open benchmark project should be interesting. I haven't looked fully into it. I'm curious to see if I could contribute a benchmark with some folks either here in the lab, here at Data and Direction, or in sort of a general cohort of people interested in that project. But it's a concrete thing that they're doing with, trying to be aware of the many different the ways of measuring things that are hard to measure but are important to try to measure or evaluate for, let's say. So I'll leave it at that. There's a few other things that I might mention later, but that's a good start as I finish walking around finally. So if there's any questions or comments, I'll field them. Otherwise, you can hear from other people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing kind of a reunion of people from, maybe the last 10 years of GSOC, if we could get people and maybe a few of the interns, because we had a lot of interns as well, several years ago, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could do that. Um, Also, yeah, I'm interested in seeing the web page when it's done, or the website. Um, yeah, it's always kind of hard to find time for that because it's always a big endeavor just to update
Yeah.
everything.
Um, and because I've asked a couple people, like, hey, I'm considering this, or like, I put in the Slack, and this is for anybody here. Like, if you want, I've, I'm kind of making some executive decisions because the reality is nobody really cares so long as they don't look, as long as they're not put in a bad light, you know.
Mhm.
But um, like if people want, some an affiliation, I'm mostly doing like if you did Google Summer Code through DevaWorks or through Octagonal Lab, I'd have that, and then maybe institution that you like. Oh, you're from Boston University or whatever, and that's it. So there's a little bit of how to represent all this stuff, which is kind of difficult, but also like what's really cool about it, and then I'm looking forward to kind of showing this. If I get to a place where I can, I will more so. Like today, I don't know if I can do it today because I'm moving.
Yeah.
But just being able to see everybody, like when you see like the stacks of everybody together, and it's like, oh wow, like it's kind of impressive,
Right.
and it's a certain point of view that you don't, because you know it, like Bradley knows because he's been in the whole time, and developing these projects very carefully, uh, personally over the last 10 years. But I've kind of been tangential to many of them, and for someone coming in, they realize like, oh, this is a really solid history of some continuous development of certain topics and some changes and branchings, and it's like it's cool to see. So I'm working to kind of do that justice, um, and I think that's happening in addition to like everything else that needs to happen to an actual functional, slightly more uh, useful website for what organizationally I'm trying to accomplish. So yeah, and there's some opportunities too, like things about like incubation and some like fellowship type things. We're hoping to get some grants and other things and opportunities of that nature. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, this is it loosely covers it's like a very broad kind of institutional uh here's some big questions that our group's looking at, and then we also cover a little bit of the reflection agency framework, which is I've actually mentioned that paper quite a lot. um it's not that I humbly and respectfully, it's not that the paper itself is a gigantic landmark in any way. It's just a very nice combination of like ethics and it talks about like Aristotelian ethics and also phenomenology. Like it goes into ethics, it goes into phenomenology, and it goes into how to try to process. Like it looks at these. It's a couple like not surveys, but I guess experiments or people using these different existing chatbots and whatnot, and kind of saying, oh, does this chatbot kind of direct you towards you know your own narrative, or is it pushing a narrative? Is it giving you agency to develop your own reflection and your own internal feeling about what you're doing, or is it trying to steer you in a particular direction? And it talks about different tensions in that. And Kat Chang is a co-author on that post, and someone we've talked a lot about. She's based in Plot Twisters. Um, we've That was a foundational paper for us in what she's working on, and she's kind of a let's to be slightly overly technical. She's sort of like an affiliate researcher of DigiNest proper and JoPro. She's based in Plot Twisters, but I'm a Plot Twisters co-founder too, so there's a lot of overlap in what we look at sometimes. So she actually presented, she works in design as well, so she presented some of the tensions in the framework to people in her workplace when about sort of yeah, I think that's one of the things. But she made her own presentation based off of the model to kind of try to explain. She made these like visualize some of the like the tension and like, oh, if you're on this side or this towards this pole or this pole of it, how does it affect things or when you're building and whatnot. And so Kat's been building out a prototype for one aspect of, I don't know, a prototype in the plot versus community, let's say. And she's very excited because she's like, oh, this is a great framework and a great paper for what we're doing, but I haven't really built anything in this in the space that she wanted to. She hadn't built anything yet when we first read it. So now she's built the prototype and she might be coming back to kind of look at this framework and this, the tensions there to kind of apply, like, okay, like what are, how is what I'm making leading the user towards, certain outcomes or what pressures are they facing or how are we attempting to mitigate that. And it's the papers come up more than I expected in some ways because in the I keep mentioning the group at the MIT Media Lab's Advancing Humans with AI Human Flourishing group. Their seminar series, I've actually mentioned this paper, their RF paper, a couple times, simply because people keep gesturing towards what the paper's getting at. Like yesterday's discussion was about. I can easily share this. I think I can actually. Yesterday's discussion uh, was with this guy, and I forget it. Did I talk about this yesterday, Bradley? I don't remember.
Which one?
I don't want to overkill it either.
Oh, that's fine. No.
I'll very loosely because I don't. Oh, I did talk about this yesterday, but not with you. I talked about it yesterday in another meeting. So that's why I'm kind of thinking about this. Is this? Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
That's showing. I don't have great. Oh, I could try to share the Discord thing, but it's not going to work. But we had a discussion about AI-powered decision support technologies, and he talked a little bit about learning and about scaff. Excuse me. Using AI to like meaningfully scaffold actual growth and the development of like learning versus, people wanting to take the shortcuts of here's the answer or like how to use it to refine your thinking. So it came up again in the discussion here because we were kind of gesturing towards, I don't know. I think I'm really I'll just put it this way. Part of why I'm a fan of the seminar series and what they're trying to do is because I think they're actually doing enough to get people in the right place to talk about things that should happen. And I'll do a very slight plug for this symposium itself and the open benchmark. Like the series is their every bi-weekly Thursday meetings that I try to attend as often as I can. The open benchmarks, the project I mentioned earlier, and this is sort of their recording that kind of has all this stuff that happened. So we can go back to I'll stop sharing my screen or whatever. But what am I doing that? I don't even have to turn that off here. Whatever. But suffice to say, it's been an interesting paper, and I think it kind of alludes to some things to build upon in the sense of in the indigenous context. I think the conversation last night, which is one of our unusually timed Friday night meetings, I think we're kind of getting at sort of this interesting situation of trying to combine, an extreme like juxtaposition would be like Roman Polinsky's uh, uh, AI safety approach of everybody has their own personal universe, and in that personal universe, AI enhanced personal universe, you can have your own ethical codes and blah 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 blah, and like that's kind of one, that's a big thing in sort of like some AI futurists or doom bloom debates and whatnot. It's like, well, the big one thing we can do is just like in that paper, he's like, oh, I think we can get value extraction the right way, and then we can give everybody their own personal universe, and they're going to be happy. It's like, okay, that it leaving that for whatever it is or isn't. Yeah, I think a core thing that we're kind of getting at here is sort of the ethical situation of what ethics do people want to deal with versus what is the actual impact on the individual, and realizing the individual's experience is unique, or they have preferences, or they have you know the non-uniformity of that, and then you have this technical medium that things are mediated through. So it's just a very interesting space to try to wrestle broad sort of macro ethics, and then micro personal experience and ethics and preferences, and then these tools and technologies that are either intentionally or unintentionally mediating all of this. So I would leave it at that, and we can move on to other things, but that's kind of what's happening in some of those spaces.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful sort of exposition of a lot of the stuff that we see the big companies doing. We see the sort of the academic response to that, or kind of like what the
Yeah.
academics think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's oh, I was gonna try to give me one moment. As I'm setting up, I'm gonna jump to the third device, and hopefully the third and final device. But yes, to your point, I'll leave this one. To your point, I think that's kind of the well, a lot of what I'm seeing, and we don't have to talk extensively about this or anything. It's interesting because we kind of get into this place where part of what's been even exciting about the data and direction interns that are coming in is like there's an increasing awareness that sort of what big tech groups are doing right now. They're on a very particular path, like particularly OpenAI and Anthropic are kind of in their own like tier one, and then there's other big groups, Gemini and so on. But it's sort of like you have the trains left the station on the big AI labs for the time being, and then you have a lot of these groups like the AHA group and the AI ethics lab at like Oxford, and everything happening at Stanford. Stanford's consolidated their group into um, well, they just consolidated their data science, and they're like the HAI thing there. That's all one thing now. So I guess that's good. But you kind of have these things that like, okay, so everything's certain things have left the station. Then you have these groups that are trying to kind of make sense of it. It's like not how you would, you know, um, not how you would profession, and that's the part of the whole macro thing right now is like this is not how you would typically release a product into the world. But now it's like, no, we're gonna do all of our study, and this is like the opposite of like if anybody's in doing like what like really what's the healthcare process where you're doing getting it federally approved
HIPAA.
at the HIPAA, and then like getting something cleared by the government, especially in America, to be released. There's like a 10-year period of you have to do trials. You do trials in Europe because Europe's a little bit easier. You do your clinical trials, you get approval, blah blah blah. It's like that in reverse now. It's like, well, we're going to do our study on impacts of AI as it's happening on old models. Like a lot of the studies coming out are like GTP3, GTP4, right? And it's like, okay, like thanks. So but that's the world we're in, and it's kind of cool to see a lot of folks in the data direction camp have come in like very aware of that. I mean, like, okay, well, let's try to figure out what we can do about the world that we're in right now. So, much to be said about that, but I'm sure there's other things that we can discuss in the time that we have for today. So, I'll pause for that for there.
All right. Yeah. So really interesting stuff. Morgan? How are you doing? Great. Maybe we'll come back to Morgan later. Barshan, how are you doing?
I just popped in to see how the meeting is going. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's great.
As just mentioned about the UFO sightings, so I was looking through it this morning. I guess the US government released the files. I
Yeah.
was wondering that what could be the reason they released it right now. So, I don't have any theories about it, but still,
Oh, okay.
that's all.
All right. All right. We do another.
What was the? Sorry, I was away for a second.
Oh, I get Barshan. I don't remember what he asked, but
Yeah, I was mentioning about the UFO files that were released by the government. So that's what.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any. I don't have any major things. Just like apparently that it's just there's more stuff that's more obvious that there's things they don't know. Things happen that they don't know what they are, but there's more evidence of it. That's all. That's all I got.